I want to know and share with the listener, like, what attracted you to mindful parenting in the beginning, to begin with?
Well, I was pregnant with my third child and I was feeling really out of control. I had a 2-year old and a 4-year old, or almost 2 and almost 4-year old at the time. And I was like, this is not going to go well. Like when I have this third child, it's already not going well with these two. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with this third. And I mean, it was a planned pregnancy. I planned it, but then I was just really feeling really stressed out. And so I attended a conference for conscious discipline. And so I needed continuing education credits for my job as an occupational therapist. And so I just kind of found something that I thought might help me as a parent as well. And so there was so much information that was just all brand new to me. So like deep breathing and managing your own stress response and learning about the brain state model, all of that was like brand new information. And so then I came home and they give you lots of skills and some scripts to use. And so I came home and I was so excited to try these skills with my children. And it didn't work, you know, it was kind of like, oh, and it was like, I believed in it and it was all research and science based. So I knew deep down that there was something to it, but I just couldn't make it work for my life. And so then listening to one of your podcasts, when you always say the thing about, you know, you could read all the parenting books, and I already had read all the parenting books, but unless you have your own stress response under control, you really can't put that stuff into practice. And so I really wanted to put what I had learned into practice. And so I decided to join the mindful parenting membership at that time. And so that gave me, you know, the skills to figure out how to like make things work and to really calm my own stress response. So
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that happens to a lot of people. I have people who are like, preschool teachers and like, why am I so freaking out with my own children? And, people who teach some kind of things. And it's really different, I think, as we apply it to ourselves, that really personal application of that work is really different. And I'm curious as to you, because, I know you live in Texas, right? Like, and it's I know it's a different scene in Texas than it is from like Seattle or like New York, right? Like
yes.
it's a different scene. And I'm curious as to like, were some of the things that you were encountering in both the conscious discipline and mindful parenting, were these like really, were you like, was this really different from the way you were raised and how you brought up?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the other thing is I didn't have any models. I think one of the questions they asked in conscious discipline is, who are your models? Like who can you think of that behaves in these kinds of mindful, thoughtful ways? And I couldn't come up with a single person. And now years later, I still haven't been able to come up with that single person who I had growing up that really modeled any of these skills for me.
Wow.
Um,
Mhm.
and so, you know, I grew up with a single mother. And so she had lots of stressors in her life. She had my brother and I when she was really young, and she was pretty reactive. And so I didn't have that model growing up. And then I can't even think of teachers that did it. And now as a parent, I don't really have many peers that parent in this way. I have, you know, I have some good friends that are far away, but nobody in my like that I get to hang out with regularly. I don't get to see this modeled.
So you're doing all this work. What brought you to the teacher training?
I felt like it seemed like the next logical step, and I felt like I had learned enough and I had benefited enough that I was really ready to share it with other people. And so I really wanted to be able to start sharing that and helping other people and spread it. So, and the other thing is that, you know, what you strengthen in another person, you strengthen in yourself.
Yes.
And so it's been a perfect continuation of my journey, because then as I'm teaching these skills, I'm living them or trying to live them as best I can. And then when I fail, I'm having compassion for myself and trying again. And, you know, I think the other day I was struggling with a situation with with one of my kids. And then I'm like, goodness, who am I to be teaching this? I feel like such a fraud, you know, and I was like, I need to email Hunter and say, how many times can I lose it with my kids before I have to like turn in my mindful parenting teacher card? And then I was just like, okay, forgive yourself and then, you know, move on. And then that was the session where my trainees were having all these results. So I was like, okay, we're still having these ripple effects, even if I still lost it with my child yesterday. So it's that self-compassion part has been really helpful, and also really helpful to revisit again and again. And I think that the teaching it will definitely help me to continue revisiting it again and again, so that I can hone the skills in my life with my children and everything else.
Amazing how strong and instant that stress response is, right? And it's like you teach about it, we know about it, and we practice and you build that muscle, you've reduced it. I mean, and I've reduced my incredibly rapid, like intense temper over the years, but I still lose it sometimes at my kids. I lose it a little more skillfully. Now I'm like, I'm really angry right now. Ah! Or most of the time I would say. But yeah, I mean, everybody's imperfect, and we're not going to expect that perfection in ourselves. And I know that's something that you've been working with, right? Is the perfection achievement piece, right? Like being able to be okay with that good enough piece.
Right. Yes, it's definitely definitely an ongoing battle. I didn't even ever think I was a perfectionist before I had kids, and then I realized, like, oh yeah, I've always been a perfectionist, and I'm even more so. I feel like parenting, I feel like, I have to get this exactly right, preferably on the first try.
And then we can't. I used to get so, I think I get so frustrated with like when you're like, you have a baby and they tell you like the ages of 1 to 3 are so like critical. And I'm just like, no, I've ruined my child forever because I was like losing it when they were 2. And it's not true. It's work that we can do at every single age. I was, just like there was a grandparent who was in my mindful parenting class in person that I taught a number of years ago, and she was in it for her 6-year-old grandchild. And she told me at the end, she got emotional, and she told me about how she healed her relationship with her adult daughter that had been really troubled for many years. And it was like, oh wow, like that's amazing. um so I don't know. For me, that was just, that was a real, some of those stories are like a real catalyst for me to move forward. Just like you were saying, like that, here, seeing your parents' ahas was like giving you that energy to move forward, even if imperfectly.
Right. And my mother, she is definitely my biggest supporter in this work. And she, even when I call her stressed and crazed, then she'll say, Becky Bailey is the creator of Conscious Discipline. So she'll say, what would Becky Bailey say this moment? or she'll even call me and ask about what would I say to a coworker that's doing this? How would I handle that? And so it's nice because she'll ask me, and then she'll remind me and then ask me at the same time. So it's definitely been good for our relationship as well, for my mother and I. So I think we both benefit from this work.
That's cool. That's what, my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk, he talks about as we change ourselves, we change, as we sit and breathe peacefully, like we sit and breathe for all our ancestors and all the generations to come. And I always thought that was kind of like, really like a very, like kind of like a more, philosophical or spiritual vision of that. But what you're describing is a very like real, concrete realization of that. As you do this work, you're doing it for, your mother is in you, doing it with you and talking to you about it. And then your kids are there with you, which is, feeling the effects of all your changes too, which is so cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And on that note, I tell a story. My husband and I did Mindful Parenting, the online course, together the first time I did it. And I think he meditated one time. And so he meditated one time, and then he was calm for about, I say 6 months after. He kept his calm for a long time after. And I was so annoyed because I was like, well, that's just easy. And then I kind of dropped off the meditation practice for a little while. And then I started doing another one of your programs. And so then I I picked it back up and I told my husband, I was like, oh, I'm starting this again. And do you remember that time you meditated once and then you were calm for a really long time? I was like, maybe you should try that. And then he never got around to it, but then all of a sudden he was calm again. And I realized that my meditation practice was helping him to be calm. And I was like, wow, he's getting all these benefits. And I shared that story in my course. And one of my participants the next week said, my husband was totally calmer the next week. So there's definitely some sort of effect of, breathing for other people. I think that's really true. And I've definitely seen it for myself in my own house, that when I take the time to do that for myself, that my husband sees the benefits and therefore I get more benefits from it. So it's really makes it more worth it, more bang for your buck, right?
A virtuous circle. Yeah, I mean, because he feeds off your energy just as you feed off his energy. You're probably like, you don't even realize how you're benefiting from his like superhuman innate calm that he just naturally has. But I love that you could like see him benefiting from yours. So that's really cool. I love that. What are your other takeaways from going through the teacher training or mindful parenting in general?
Yeah, I think now that I feel like I've started and stopped meditation enough, I feel like I can really see the benefits of a consistent practice and how that's helpful to my life. And then definitely the self-compassion piece and the loving kindness is definitely one of my favorite pieces of mindful parenting, where you're wishing other people well. And that's also very aligned with conscious discipline, because they teach kids to wish well. And so you put a hand on your heart and take a deep breath and kind of like send all your good positive vibes to another person. And so it's very, it's totally aligned with that. And I find that's one of the tools I would say I use the most, is that loving kindness piece of sharing that, and all kinds of places, when you drive past a homeless person and you don't even have time to stop, and you don't even know what you would do if you could, that's a time I use that loving kindness. Or, in the grocery store, or with a difficult child when I'm working at my job, and when I feel annoyed, I just feel like it's really something I use all the time.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Iyanla Vanzant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.